Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Realm of Thrones, the total conversion mod for Mount & Blade Bannerlord, which brings the whole world into the world of Game of Thrones, otherwise known as A Song of Ice and Fire. And it is inspired by the visuals of the two HBO series, both A Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon. And in this series I've been exploring the armor for each faction in this mod, at least each faction that's well developed enough for its own video. And I do this through two ways. We explore the troop trees for each faction, and that kind of shows you what the troops in that faction will be wearing, and then I also show you the full standalone suits of armor as they exist in the faction. And so we're going to do both of those. And I'm going to try to make it a little bit faster than I usually do. Not like rushing, but without as much accidental babbling, because I like armor and it excites me a lot, and so sometimes I talk too much in these videos, and I've noticed some of the ones I've made in this series already have gotten rather long. So I'm going to try to make this one a little bit more succinct. So let's just start off with the troops. And of course, we are talking about the Riverlands for today. Probably should have mentioned that earlier, which is all of the area that is fed by the major rivers of Westeros. So if you had to have a faction or like be the lord of a faction in here, the Riverlands is pretty much the worst one because it's right in the middle of everyone else. It stretches from the bottom of the north up by the neck, all the way down and around along the Westerlands, along the Reach, and along the Crownlands, and even up towards the Vale. So you've got just other kingdoms on every single side of you. Everybody's moving through you. If there's a war that's going to happen, you know that the Riverlands are going to suffer the brunt of it, and that's just the way it works. So I wouldn't want to live here, even though other than that, it's a decent area. It's got good weather, decent agriculture, lots of natural resources, but it's just the place that's between everyone else. So because of that, they always bleed. And so the Riverlands is actually a pretty big area. I think the Crownlands covers all the way up and around Maidenpool, even though sometimes Maidenpool is considered part of the Riverlands. But if we start it there, it comes across through Derry, Harrenhal, Haraway, Stonehenge, Riverrun. I think Acorn Hall and Wayfarer's Rest might sometimes be considered part of the Riverlands. Raventree Hall, Seaguard, up to the Twins. So this area right here is the Riverlands. So it is a large-ish region. And we're going to be looking at the armor for this region today. So let's start out with the troops. Starting with just the basic Riverlands recruit troop tree, and I think this is the section I need to speed up a little bit because it's the less interesting section in my opinion. We'll just click on each one and I'll show you what it looks like. I won't even talk about each item. So starting with the Riverlands recruit at tier 1, then we have two tier 2 options, the Riverlands footman and the Riverlands bowman. Then we have in tier 3 two options, the Riverlands soldier, which is an infantry unit, and the Riverlands archer, which is an archer unit, obviously. Then we have 3 for tier 4, the Riverlands man at arms, the Riverlands horseman, and the Riverlands elite archer. Then we have 5 in tier 5, so the Riverlands house guard, the Riverlands axeman, the Riverlands pikeman, the Riverlands cavalry, and the Riverlands ranger, which is one of the best archer units in the game. So overall, I would say that especially once you get to tier 4, so tiers 4 and 5, these look pretty solid. They are mostly using unique assets to the mod, so very few vanilla assets getting mixed in. Tier 3 and above for the Riverlands do definitely suffer from that a lot more, but like I said, once you get up to tier 4 and 5, they look pretty good on the whole and definitely match the aesthetic of the rest of the mod and the Riverlands in the show. So that is the basic Riverlands recruit troop tree. We have 2 other troop trees though, or I should say 3 other ones. We also have the noble troop tree, so that starts with the Riverlands son, then up to the Riverlands swordsman, the Riverlands elite swordsman, the Riverlands sword master, so he's the master of swords, and then the Riverlands admiral, which would insinuate that they have a navy, which as far as I know they don't, but it's just a elite two-handed and one-handed, so it's a sword and board and two-handed hybrid unit. So they're actually a very effective infantry unit, even though they have some of the lighter armor in the game. But that is the noble troop tree for the Riverlands. Then we have the Frey troop tree, so this is the noble house from the Twins. Their troop tree is, I like the way that it looks, so I'm not complaining about it, but it's obviously very basic. So it starts with the Frey levy, then we have 2 tier 3 troops, the Frey crossbowmen and the Frey cutthroat. Then moving up to tier 4, we have the Frey veteran crossbowmen, the Frey man-at-arms, and the Frey rider. Then in tier 5, we have the Frey sharpshooter, the Frey guard of the crossing, and the Frey horseman. And then for tier 6, we have the Frey assassin. So their top tier troop is a crossbow unit, which is also one of the better archer units available in the game. I actually quite like them. So like I said, very basic. They do have the advantage of using unique assets, so it's not too too much vanilla stuff getting reused in this troop tree. And they're very basic, so they all kind of look exactly the same. They've got different helmets, but they all pretty much wear the exact same torso covering. Some of them have this gorget, some don't have it, but overall, they all look pretty much the same. So if you have a full Frey army, they're like indistinguishable on the battlefield, except some of them will be shooting a crossbow, some will be carrying a sword, and some will be riding a horse. Other than that, they all look pretty much the same. But to be fair, that's how they looked in the show. So I'm not complaining about it, but it is just a thing to be aware of. Then finally, we have the Tully troop tree. So House Tully is the leading faction in the Riverlands. They're the wardens of the, I don't know what they're the wardens of. They're not the east, west, north, or south. So whatever they are, they're the wardens of the Riverlands, I guess. Here we have House Tully footman, the House Tully soldier. Moving on to tier 4, we have the House Tully man at arms. So you can see we have the Tully crest, so it looks a little bit different than the basic Riverlands one. The House Tully archer, the Tully rider, the Tully house guard, the House Tully longbowman, which is another one of the best archer units in the game, the Tully knight, which looks quite a bit more unique than pretty much everything else we've seen out of the Riverlands so far, and the River Run captain, which is just an upgraded version of the Tully knight. So that is all of the troops for the Riverlands region in this mod. Hopefully that was a little bit quicker and better format for looking at the troops. So now let's look at all of the full suits of armor for this region. And now keep in mind, when I say full suit of armor, it means we're trying to fill every slot unless we have a piece of armor that blocks it so we can't. And we're only using items that belong to this region. So even if one of the troops that I've just showed you has like a pair of gloves or something like that from a different faction, we're not considering that. It doesn't belong to this faction. So let's just look at some of the armor for this region. All right, here we have the Riverlands Levy Recruit, whatever you want to call it. It's the most basic Riverlands full suit of armor. And now you'll notice we don't have gloves. That's because there isn't a single set, at least not that I could find, of Riverlands specific gloves in this mod. So I feel like that's an oversight. There definitely should be. None of them. None of the suits of armor in here are going to have gloves because they don't have any. But here we have the Riverlands Coif, the Riverlands Shoulders 2, Riverlands Gambeson, and the Riverlands Boots. So it's obviously very light. I'd say the shoulders look a little bit out of place with it, but not horribly so. And then the Coif, I think, looks pretty good. So overall, one of the worst looking low-level suits of armor, but it is what it is. That's our base level Riverlands suit of armor. Next up, we have our first variant of the Frey armor. This, I assume, would be, I guess, archer's armor, I suppose. They don't look all that distinct. All of the Frey armor is very light, so it could be used interchangeably for their Frey cavalry, Frey infantry, or Frey archer, however you would choose to do it, because it's all too light to be anything serious. But it's made up of the Frey leather cap, the Frey gorget, the Frey armor, no gloves because we don't have any in the Riverlands. The Riverlands people do not believe in gloves apparently, and the Frey boots. So overall, I would say it's a good looking suit of armor, like none of the textures clip. It all looks about the same fidelity and everything matches, but obviously very light. So that is our first Frey armor. Our second variant of the Frey armor is exactly the same, except we swap out, and now we have the Frey steel cap, which is their most basic helmet. We still have the same other items. So again, maybe you call that first one an archer, and then maybe this one is your infantry unit, because now you have the Frey steel cap, so a much more infantry unit. But that's our second Frey armor. And here's our third and final Frey armor. So all of the same stuff, once again, the Frey boots, Frey armor, and the Frey gorget, but we have the Frey helmet, which is the steel cap, except we have the, I believe that's called a leather cervelier, or however you pronounce that, the little thing that comes off the back to protect the neck. So slightly more protective helmet for this one. So I guess if you're going to have a cavalry unit for the Freys, this would be it, or I guess infantry as well, because, you know, head and neck protection is important no matter what weapon you're fighting with. So that is our third and final Freya suit of armor. Next, we have our slightly heavier version of the Riverlands basic armor. So this one's made up of the Riverlands Coif, the Riverlands Shoulders, the Riverlands armor, no gloves, and the Riverlands boots. So very similar to the first one, it's just instead of our, well, we used a different shoulders. The first one was split down the middle, this one's solid, and this one has the actual Riverlands, I guess you call it a type of scale armor over mail instead of just the gambeson. So overall, I think it looks a lot better because of those small changes, and it definitely looks like it's heavier duty. So this would be better for an archer or infantry unit than the first one we looked at, but also still not very heavy. So that is our, I guess, Riverlands infantry armor. I don't have specific names for these just because they're not all that unique, but that's our second variant of the Riverlands basic armor. Next, we have our Blackfish armor. So this would be specifically the stuff worn by Brynden the Blackfish Tully. So so Hoster Tully's brother, the uncle of Catelyn Stark from the show. This one is made up of the Tully coif, the Blackfish shoulders, the Blackfish armor, no gloves, and the Riverland boots. So it looks very similar to the other Riverlands armor. We have the Blackfish's personal sigil here, so it's the same Tully trout. It's just instead of being the red and blue like theirs are, his are black, because he's the black sheep of the family, and so he took the nickname Blackfish once his brother called him it. It's a fun story, all that sort of stuff. The armor itself doesn't look all that unique. If I was to nitpick a little bit here, I would just say the mod authors could distinguish it a bit more by making it blacker. Like, actually, instead of having it be kind of grayish brown, just actually make it black. But with all that being said, I think it looks decent enough. Next up, we have the Riverlands noble armor, or the Tully armor, depending how you want to look at it. This is basically what you would see Edmure Tully, you know, Catelyn Stark's brother. This is basically what you'd see him wear. So like I said, it looks a lot like the other Riverlands armor that we've already looked at. There's not a lot of differences. It's made up of the Tully coif, the Tully shoulders, the Riverlands noble armor, no gloves, and the Riverlands boots. So once again, like I said, it's a little bit darker brown, and you can see we have the Tully sigil up here, but instead of being black like the Blackfish's one is, this one's kind of silverish. I guess it's a little bit shinier. So doesn't look all that different from the Blackfish armor, but it looks a little bit different. But that is another set that I guess you could make. And lastly, we have the only set of heavy armor in the entire Riverlands, and it is the Tully scale armor. So this would be, I guess, the House Guard for House Tully. So it makes sense that if you're going to have only one set of heavy armor in the entire faction, that it would be for the House Guard of the commanding family of the region. But it just feels weird that none of the rest of the troops in this entire faction have any type of heavy armor. But anyway, this set's made up of the Tully helmet, the Tully cape, the Tully scale armor, once again no gloves, and the Tully shoes. So overall, I like it. It's a good looking set of armor. It's unique. I mean, I don't love the helmet for a couple reasons. I think the gorget looks weird, and that it's got this duller silver, whereas the rest of it's all really shiny, so it kind of looks like it doesn't match. But I do like how it has the red coif on top, which matches the colors of the Tully sigil, which is the leaping trout. Like I said, the white trout on a red field with the blue of the river underneath. Overall, I think, like I said, it's a lot more unique than the other sets in this faction, so for that reason alone, it's probably my favorite one in the faction, and it's the only one that's got any sort of heavy armor to it at all. But yeah, that is our last set of armor for the Riverlands in Realm of Thrones. And so that is where we're going to end today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like I said at the beginning of the video, this is one video in a series, so if you want to see me explore the armor for the other factions in this mod, I already have several videos out covering the Vale, the Stormlands, the Iron Islands, and Dragonstone so far, so you could check out any of those if you haven't seen them. I'm also planning on covering most of the other factions in the mod, one video at a time, so if you want to see any of those, like the Westerlands or the North or Dorne, or maybe some stuff in Essos, depending on if people want to see that, stick around, subscribe, and I'll cover them soon. So with all that being said, hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.